All right. How you guys doing?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for coming. My name is Jose. And we're gonna get to talk today. Welcome to crafting ecological narratives. This is under the play and creativity section of Design Week. Just very excited to be here and sharing my work with you and my research. Now, some of the stuff that you see here are stuff that you're going to see in the screen. So I might be passing some things around just to provide you some context of what we're talking about. Just give me a second. I think I'm back in it. Sorry, I had a. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I just want to make sure that people online are seeing what I'm seeing.
They're seeing what's on the TV.
Okay, cool. All right. So thank you again. My name is José Menéndez, and I welcome you to Crafting Ecological Narratives in the Landscape. I'm a landscape architect, and I worked for about 10 years, working in a wide range of projects, specifically park design, like Sister Cities Garden. This is a children's garden in Philadelphia, and I thought it fit very well with the idea of play. I think that it's been something that has been sort of following my career as I go. So my coming out of school, I studied landscape architecture and horticulture, and that's what I did for about 10 years. And really, it sparked my ideas on really creating landscapes or experiences that are for exploration and joy. Later on, I worked in other infrastructure projects like New York Stock Exchange. This was a turntable that it will turn around when cars will pass by, but when it wouldn't, it will stay like that. And it was designed to combat terrorist attacks. That was right after the September 11 situation. So a lot of work on that. But I also work in gardens and exploration. This was up in the Métis Sculpture Garden up in Quebec, and it's a great festival of experimental landscapes and they're ephemeral. So this one we worked on it for a year, and it ended up staying there for 4 years. So it was a really interesting thing. So within that, after I worked for a while, I decided to go back to school. And therefore, I ended up in Rhode Island, and I went for the graphic design, MFA in graphic design up in RISD, and that was my team. That was my cohort in our exhibit, and that's me defending my thesis. And I think it was a really interesting moment for me, a pivotal moment, because as a designer, I wanted to think about how to build narratives, how to create narratives, and that's something that got me into graphic design. And I think. When people ask me, what is graphic design? Well, graphic design is about building narratives, right? Not tools. You'll find the tools later. There are many and plenty of them. But I think that was the main drive on why I wanted to do it. I wanted to be able to communicate those things. And I worked in several projects when I was in school. And I love RISD because they had the landscape school, so I was able to work with them. And that led me into a master's after I finished, where I studied marine science up in University of Rhode Island. And then at the University of Rhode Island, I then started to work in things like this, very, stormwater or, 100-year storm, sea level rise visualizations for different coastal towns in Rhode Island. So very specific, very computer generated, a lot of working with tools that had to do with hydrology and had to do with ocean floor, and really looking at like how things were going to change and how to communicate those to people. And here at Northeastern, I am an assistant professor, and between art and design, to teach graphic design, and I'm also teaching in the School of Architecture. So I think I teach a range of topics, from typography, is my favorite class, to three-dimensional wayfinding or perhaps storytelling in three-dimensional space for architecture. So it's a really kind of an interesting kind of set of of ranges that I got myself into after a 22-year career, finding out these different degrees and finding out these experiences. So here I have a graphic communication lab. I started it this year. And I have a grant from the National Park Service up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, when we're going to be building a pollinator garden. And I have two students with me that are, and then we're working this summer on developing a communication campaign about bees, native bees, and wildflowers and everything in between. So we're very excited to do that. I'm very glad to see that I have some students of mine that are, we're jump-starting the risograph. I know I've seen some interest around, so we've been working with this. Anne and myself been working since I got here about 6 years ago. So we're happy and we're so proud to have the machine here, and it's pretty much getting open now in this semester for the use and exploration, experimentation at home. So we're very excited. If you're interested about the risograph club or thinking about what that means, or if you ever want to be part of a club, this is the kind of club you want to be part of, because we have a lot of things in mind. Books that I'm reading, caps lock, How to Capitalism Took Hold of Graphic Design and How to Escape from It. That's a lot. I think that's a very important book for me. The easiest way to save resources and energy and to reduce waste is to use less. The Green Imperative by Victor Papanek. How to Design a Revolution, The Chilean Road to Design, Productive Archiving, and Riso Art, right? So these are some of this, letterpress, David Kufner, and True Print. These are great books that I love. Studios I'm crazy about. Bruce Mao Design. Porto Rocha is a Brazilian studio up in New York. Studio Spas, I love them. I want to be them. I want to work with them. I want to do all this stuff out here in the world, in Boston. I want to do everything there. And Studio Fikes, and I love their typography. I'm in love with that typography. A lot of parametric typography. This guy is insane. So definitely take a look at it. So I have a studio called Buena Gráfica Social Studio. And I have that with my partner, Tatiana, which is there. Tatiana is also an assistant professor in graphic design at Mass-Arts. So we have a studio back in Providence, and we live together. So, and we take the train together. So we do a lot of things together. So there she is. She's not here today, but she would love to be. And as part of the studio that we have a digital studio, but we also have a letterpress studio. And to us, it's very important since I came, we actually met in the letterpress studio at Bristol. So we love, to me, making with your hands, it's a way to understand the world one step at a time, right? One process at a time. So we keep that very, very present in our practice. We just moved our letterpress to a new place, and that's how that looks like. It's a lot of work to move it. And this is Tati's mom. The letterpress is here now. We're just getting ready to have the studio. So we have a new location up in Pawtucket. We're very happy. And this is the stuff we do. We bring people over and we do prints. And we use the letterpress. We use the risograph, in which we're going to have a workshop later on today. If you're welcome to join. And we do print because print is a way to slow down. Print is a way to understand processes. It's a way to understand graphic design in a way, color, typography, all that beautiful stuff, paper structures. But it's a way to bring people together. Takes community, right? That looks good. Don't worry about it. That's actually a street poster. So you see that it's newsprint. So that's meant to be put in the street. So I brought it here. So within that, we're going to talk about how to do community building through graphic design initiatives. And that's kind of like what I like to do, what I like to think about my work, my research, and it is how to bring strength, confidence, and trust in our communities through the engagement from the ground up. So for me, community is something that we do together. It's not a container. That means that in order to create this or talk about this word community that is being thrown out a lot, right? You sort of have to be in it, right? In order to be, you sort of have to actually be in the community, right? Not just say that you are. So it takes time. It's a lot of time, a lot of processes, a lot of trust, a lot of overhead, and a lot of headaches, but also a lot of good stuff. So all these collaborations take multiple forms. So, you know, whether it's a three-dimensional object, it's a branding campaign, it's a little postcard, you know, all these things can manifest into a way of community engagement. And I've been doing that. I've been building these relationships since 2014. These are some of the institutions that I have worked with, continue to collaborate with, from organizations, academia, institutions, artists, and everything in between. Just a really great way to think about that. And when I think about crafting, I love the dictionary and I love defining things. And crafting for me, or not for me, for the dictionary, involves using your hands and skill to create something, whether it's a decorative item, a functional object, or something else entirely, right? And for me, and for the computer, and for Google, narrative is a skill-based activity, something as a story that is told or written, is the art and practice of telling stories, right? So can you tell stories? Are you able to tell stories with the thing you make, right? That's kind of the question. So I think, and I believe that, and we believe that posters are great materials for outreach, right? So we start from the very, very bottom up. We start from the kind of the closest things that we have for us. And we have done that as a social response. We have seen ways into how do we engage with community in times of unrest, in times of, this was 2020, the killing of George Floyd, all those problems, and we started to create posters that talk about issues that continue to be here with us today, and these stories, and continue to be our parents' stories and perhaps our grandparents' stories. There's issues that continue to evolve in our society. And posters have always been a great way of communicating and for outreach and engaging people. So we have done these things. We put them out there in the streets and people will take them. We can make them for free. And we have seen like how in the protests, all of a sudden, this kind of poster started to appear in places. We saw it in the streets. Even in like, I was just coming out and I was like, wow, in this restaurant, I put it on a frame. It's in this thing and this is in the bar and everywhere. And we were like, whoa, in the parking meters. And I was like, wow, these posters really have taken a place. And what's interesting, Brown University saw that. I guess they landed also in Brown. And I invited us to have a show where I designed the show. And it was an interesting thing because it was COVID back then. So no access to the galleries. So you could only see it from the outside, right? Which it was kind of the whole point of the poster, right? That you see it through the glass. So, so we made this mural of Rise Up and, you know, and created this mural of all the collective. It's a collective posters. And this is how it looked at night. So Esther Agency, we were really happy to, it was a collective, I was part of it. And one thing that was really interesting for us, this was labor of love. And I got the RISD Museum to collect all the work and pay all the artists and everyone that worked on this work. So now people, including myself, have a collection there for new people to see. So, so posters continue to be something, and then we saw that there might be something there to continue to think about. Now, COVID happened too, right? So there were those times. And so I worked with the Department of Health and I created a grant for them. And I say, listen, you're communicating science to, who are you communicating science to? Let's think about, if you want people, this is about vaccine hesitancy. Let's think about who are we talking to, right? What is our audience? And I think that's the kind of the overarching theme here, is to think about the audience, right? When we create communication systems. And for this one, I was very, I honed it down and I said, I want to make posters for the Dominican population in Providence, which is the largest population of Latino people in Providence, right? Now they're Colombians too, and they're all, but that was specifically the one. And so we created posters that we went out, interviewed people, we had a survey, and we came back with some ideas, and we designed posters based on that. Yo por ti, tú por mí is a reggaeton song. It was, you know, I was thinking on the youth, right? I do it for you, you do it for me. Don't die daydreaming. This has to do with a Dominican drink. Don't don't lose the taste of coffee, right? That was like Latino people love their coffee, and the idea of losing taste for COVID. So there were some things that I was trying to like get into their mind, right? To kind of catch them. This was also about if you were going to travel, make sure you get vaccinated. So I put all the countries in Latin America so people can see their country, right? And that's Tati with Yo Te Puedo por Ti. This was for the soccer people. We know that the Latino people love the soccer. So give COVID a goal or something like that, right? That's Pelé, right? Which is like Brazilian God. And so really trying to think about trying to make posters for each of these audiences. This was done for kids. So kids could tell their parents to vaccinate, right? So this was a lullaby, right? Heel, heel, little tail frog. If you didn't get vaccinated today, you'll get vaccinated tomorrow. And that comes from a Spanish lullaby. And so I put a nice little Band-Aid on our little friend here that we drew. So this was done and also for the specific audience for this was kindergartens, right? Or like after school programs, right? So again, each of them had a specific design, had a specific and a specific audience to target. And then we went back and give them to people and put them in barber shops. We put them in like, I don't know, Western Union places, like where people change like money for cash, supermarkets, bodegas, hair salons, mechanic shops. This guy was so cool. He put it there. He's like, I want to put it myself. So this became, it became kind of an interesting way of connecting to people at that moment. Later on, we talked as well with the Cape Verdean community. Now, I was in Cape Verde and I did not know what the community was about. So I talked to a representative of the cultural organization, and then we workshopped a way to come up with a message. One thing that I wanted to know was, well, I learned that they love there's an archipelago of islands, right? And the north and the south, they speak different languages, right? And this is kind of a poem, right? Dear Cape Verdeans, get vaccinated or get your vaccine up to date so you can visit your beloved island safely because they love their island. They have, there's a style of music called Morna, which is it's all about the longing for them. So when we deploy these posters, people were like this, like, oh my God, I'm from here, right? And my aunt lives here. And all of a sudden, they're touching the poster, and they're like, it becomes an anthropological exercise. Forget about what's happening around, right? So I think that was the kind of idea: is to talk about the issue. You first don't need to talk about the issue. That makes sense, right? So how can you create a narrative that is not necessarily the narrative that you want? And within that, we went deeper on that. This our news back there. I took that and screenshot in 2022. This continues to happen everywhere, right? So how do we can start talking about these issues as well? The stigmatizing drug overdose and the stigmatizing this issue because it's a sickness, right? So the idea here was being a little bit more playful about it. We workshop with the different organizations here. In this case, Amos House, Project Weber. These are organizations that are dedicated to drug, to deal with these issues of drug abuse. And so the opposite of addiction is community support. This was something we workshopped together with the representatives. There was a campaign on Narcan, and we love this one, Save a Life Before It's Game Over, right? And sort of this kind of play, right? Pac-Man there, kind of like getting at you. So an opioid overdose don't have to happen in a world where our Narcan exists. Now, these are in there, they're double-sided, Spanish and English. You decided whether to put them. And we deploy them out there and put them and also did bus stops. So, people will come to us and he will say, your posters were in places where, they were in places where they were critical and people needed to do that. And then the posters travel to different exhibits as well. And so this idea of putting graphics out there in public space and COVID got me to work with a nonprofit called the Steel Yard to create a campaign for deploying parklets out there during COVID. And so they had this kind of combo of things that if you needed one, they would take it and put it in your restaurant or put it in whatever space you wanted. And so what we did is we designed a bilingual a bilingual stencil, kind of brand, right, for it. We picked the colors and, it's amazing to see that I pick a lot of neon colors. There were no neon colors. There was nothing during COVID. We had people were driving along the East Coast up to Maine to look for them and they couldn't find them. So we ended up with that. A lot of that stuff. A lot of grays because they were gone. Because when COVID, there was not a lot of things. And so one of the things that after doing the branding, we also took on some of the parklets and we started to paint them and kind of intervene on them. We also did some reso prints and it's sort of this idea of, let's be nice about this. Don't use COVID. Don't do that, right? Like this way of messaging and the way that the government or health organizations talk to us is very interesting. Nevertheless, talking about like who do they talk to? What are the communities that they talk to, right? So we try to change that narrative a little bit. But hey, let's just, soap. Who doesn't? I used to remind me of Mr. Bubbles. I don't know, when I was a kid, my mom used to put that on my bathtub, so I just remember that. Or even the idea of conversion, like 6 feet, 6 feet. A lot of people, the only people that thinks that 6 feet is just the Americans, right? Everyone else uses, the metric system. So when we think about 6 feet, like, like you're missing out, like, 2/3 of like people in the States, like, right? Like, what are you doing? So, so there were things that we were thinking about in that, and these are some of the designs and some of the things that came up. Now, what I love about this, we had a one rule only, and it was using 2-inch blue tape. And from the 2-inch blue tape, like whatever came out, the designs were based on that. So we could only do like, we proposed some rules, Tatiana and myself, like straight lines or 45. So you can see how those things happen. So it was pretty cool. And we saw them deploying, they had different artists. And then we started to see how this thing kind of changed things around. Now they're still around. There's some things around Providence. You can still see the ends of it. People, some organizations sometimes use them to block a street or something. We're like, remember those? I worked with the 195 District and 195 District Park. These are the organization of the development in downtown Providence. And this is the park that I've been working in since 2020. And we've done a lot of public campaigns with them on bring people into the park. I have about I believe it's about 4,000 people, 3,000 people in an average summer day, right? So a lot of people walk through this, created this container garden. You can see it there. And this was a way for us it was a shipping container. So we thought, I was thinking, I always love Dazzle and the chips and how in World War I they have this, the Navy, the military used to paint. They actually use a lot of RISD artists professors to paint the boats. It's a great collection and reasoning about that. And I was infatuated by this. So I was like, it's a shipping container. Let's do some Dazzle here. And what's amazing about the corrugated effect is that whenever you look at it, it's distorted. So we did 2 of this. We painted the top of it. And we also created the branding for the park and then designed a set of icons that go into the park that talk about the heron. There was a heron that visited, that made the park its home. So we made a homage to the heron. Little fish, a bunny that it was always around. So the park was interested in not just doing any kind of, we try to kind of make icons that were already of things that were happening in the park. And with those, we did banners. And one of the things that I believe in the idea for this work was to sometimes, and I think I worked in this is my time as a landscape architect kind of brought these ideas, is sometimes we design and just do everything at once. And then we expect people to engage with it and we take awesome pictures and we say, oh my God, it's an amazing public space, right? And I think that for me, that was something that I wanted to go against. And my thought always has been, let's do interventions time by time. Let's space it out, right? Let's do a container here. Let's put a color palette there. Let's do a mural here. Let's do these banners here. Let's see how people are reacting to these things. And let's build an identity as people are also learning about the park. Now, this is a really great way to do things because, organizations don't have $30,000, $50,000 to spend on graphics on one day, right? So you build you build the trust, you build something over time and you test your design as they go. So I always love this idea of an incrementally intervention in space. It will become a place, right? Or it will shape the place because the place is already there, right? So we have deployed this. We have these banners now. We have summer banners and winter banners, and they've been really awesome. So we designed the winter banners as well. We've done a semi-permanent wayfinding system that now this summer we are actually getting into doing permanent wayfinding. And this was they're building a new cafe, a new restaurant, and so we did the scrim fencing around. They came to us and said, we have this ugly fence. And I'm like, what do you mean you have this ugly fence? You have 1,200 square feet of a canvas. Let's do something with it. And so, look, I mean, people are loving it. Like they're playing. It's a kind of interesting, the colors and everything. We're keeping the branding of the park. So places kind of start by this kind of acupuncture moments, right? And this was during COVID as well. I worked with a kids organization, youth organization in Fall River when we do public art in order to keep them out of trouble, but also to celebrate the spirit of the town. And we did this project, Viva Fall River. It was based on a song by a Portuguese singer that loved Fall River and lived there. And we thought of the idea of mosaic tiles and the spirit of Portugal with the color and the tiling. And what's interesting is that place was really crazy. It was not safe to be painting on there. When we were setting up and figuring out the type and all that, we were kerning by hand there. It was a lot of work. It was not a good place. And once we did it, the kids did it. People started to come to the place and they started to clean it. And they made Taco Tuesdays there. And all of a sudden they make selfies here, right? So this is a place that was overlooked. This is a place that was not interesting perhaps to see. There was no apparent use for it. But this is the power of a graphic, of a mural, is something that involved the youth on it. If you involve in anywhere you involve the youth, you are winning because the youth are going to be there. And they're going to host that place and they're going to be the keepers of that place, right? And so we have a really beautiful moment here where we see that this is the power that this kind of stuff has. And since then, Fall River now has Viva Fall River is a movement. We designed the branding. It's a thing. They bring people. It's a cultural place. It's an artist market. They have a store. So it has become much more than it was than a mural on a wall. So I think that's the idea. How can you incrementally, right, begin to start intervening with spaces? And this is also true on our work and our participation in Copley Connect, which was a 10-day experiment that the city of Boston did, closing Dartmouth Street by the public library. This was closed for 10 days, and we came in and we painted things yellow, and we put a bunch of sandwich boards, and people put the library outside for books for kids, and people were there. And we built those nice little sandwich boards and did all kinds of the branding for it. And again, plywood, just very, very ad hoc DIY, perhaps. Low budget, whatever we can get our hands on. And, they collected the data and they think they're going to close it because people really loved it. And people love that being a space. So again, this small intervention, these small things, you never know how they can scale up to things. We'll wait to see if this will ever happen. But there are the studies, the city of Boston do think that they can do this. Farm Fresh Rhode Island, it's the regional headquarters of food systems here in the New England. So this is a headquarters, state-of-the-art, beautiful space where you have farmers markets here. You have people that come here year-round, and they sell everything. It's an amazing space because you never know what you're going to get because people come from all over New England, right? They ask us to to activate the space. And it was really interesting. They said to us, what they said to me, this is how it was before. And it was like, Jose, we want to do something. I'm like, farm, great. Think about it. Close your eyes. If I say farm, let's make a mural about farm. What's the first thing you're going to think about? I don't know, maybe tomatoes or like whatever it is. I don't know. You'll probably think of produce, right? And the questions were like, well, we'll say, if we do a tomato, I have some farmers that would say, well, why that tomato? Why not that tomato? Right? Well, all tomatoes, like, why are you representing just one tomato? And it's just the way the silliness that our society has come up to, right? That we just need to digest everything in a very, we just need to like break it down up to the tomato, right? Like whether or not. But again, I love that because I always love abstract art compositions. And then it's like, this is a great opportunity for color and form, right? To be part of it. So the idea was to then recreate what we thought was a field of a farm, a field and kind of think about the ocean and the water and the oysters and also the different land produce that you get. Also, the Rhode Island is the ocean state, so you have a lot of connections to the water. So we activated the space. In this case, I designed the mural and did it to a friend of ours called Providence Painted Signs, and he's a muralist, and he helped us do this. The guy's insane. It's a really beautiful work. And thinking about, and now the space is like, it's really funny. People tell me, so did you do the mural there? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, you don't feel it's there. And I was like, exactly, that's what we wanted. We don't want to feel like it's there, right? So people kind of took it on. They were like, great, this is perfect, right? So at least I hope. So far so good, but so it's been another way of activating spaces through graphics. I am currently working with this State of Commerce in Rhode Island developing and the West Neighborhood Association in imagining the streets and connect our neighborhood. This is a place shaping, place shaping activity where we are taking the space of the West Side neighborhood of Providence, and we are looking at it on all the streets, all the commerce, and we are developing a series of strategies where of place shaping, right? And place shaping is interesting. I said place making first. You find that a lot in books. Place making. And people said to me, Jose, place making. But the place, you don't need to make a place. The place is already there, right? And then I went, wait, hold on. So we're gonna call it now place keeping. And they were like, well, where are you keeping it from? All right. So I was like, good. This is why the community engagement events are great, because this is the kind of stuff that people talks about. So I'm like, all right, so how about if we shape it, right? So it's not a new thing. We're just gonna find a way to think about this. And we have the commerce, we have the residents, we have the schools, and what we have done, this was the beginning. We went to a technical academy, which was a school there, and we talked to students. We're doing workshops with them. We have done workshops with the business community to imagine this. And we also, this is the West Broadway Neighborhood Association. To me, this is the best location for a nonprofit that deals with neighborhood planning. It's in an old gas station. How cool is that? They tell me that sometimes they get someone asking to change their tires, which I find is just really awesome. So this is the interior of the mechanic shop. So we continue to do work there. This summer, we're going to do an event for kids. And what we're going to end up doing is developing a series of place making, place shaping, place keeping, right? Ideas on it. So whether it's murals, whether it's typography, branding, whether it's signage and wayfinding, right? There will be perhaps a playground. So we're doing some planning activities within that. So that's still going on. And then that takes me to really when I was working in landscape architecture, and I worked in New York for a bit. I worked in this this project, MTA grades, and this was a response to what happened in 2007. Now this happens all the time, but back then this was crazy, right? The subway flooding. And this is how things look like. And I was hired to come into this studio. Royers Marvell Architects, now Royers and Marvell, they're their own, they each went their own way. And the idea was to raise the grades, right? To allow so the water doesn't go. Right? Kind of simple, right? You see, you don't want the water in the subway, just raise the grades. Well, we did a lot of hydrological studies, and I found out that is block by block. Sometimes you get, flooding that is 6 inches, sometimes flooding that is 11 inches, sometimes flooding that is 1.5 feet, right? It all depends. There's basements involved, there's all kinds of stuff. The team where I co-created this, I was working in a studio. Boy, this kind of cool thing, right? Like this really cool object, and wow, wavy and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a treasure. I was like, wow, I mean, this just like laser cut, laser jet, water cut, all this material, like parametric design. What an incredible thing. And I was like, I was so excited about this, right? And now I look back into it, and I was like, wow, this is very, very not. This isn't like a foreign object. This is something like looks like it's not. It just looks very apart from the idea of water. And that got me thinking about things. It's like, why do we do things like that, right? So in a way, it's a cool sculpture. I'm really proud I worked on. I learned a lot. But looking back into it, I think about perhaps this thing too, that I learned so much, all these tools, all this really cutting edge technology. And we are just like, wow, we're going to communicate this to people. Most people don't know how to read that. So the question is like, there's multiple ways of doing research and doing this kind of work, but we kind of need to understand, number one, that there's not a format that rules at all, right? There's not a format. So who are we communicating to? That's the question. And I think that's the hardest question as a designer. When you think about, okay, that is a specific group of people, and that's important. For example, stakeholders, people that work in engineering firms, perhaps people that work in planning offices, perfect. But you come to a town hall, you know what you're going to get? Zero, right? So I think the idea here, or not perhaps zero, that's a little too extreme, right? But the idea is, how are we engaging with the concept of translation? And I'm just not saying a translation of a language. I'm talking about a scientific translation. So what about that jargon, right? How can we get rid of that? Linguistic, how can we go beyond Google? Graphic, how can we think about the voices, the multiple formats that we're communicating, right? That's what we need to think about, because there's no format that rules at all. And that is very academic. And we need to kind of think about how to think about this issue in a three-dimensional form. So the way I do it is by embracing the multiplicity of communication outputs. So if you can't really rule them all, then use them all. Try them. So this is a book. I have 2 copies of that. This was an almanac that we love working on it, and it looked at climate histories and narratives from different artists, poets, grocers, storytellers, scientists. And these are books that go to the farmers. This is the almanac. They come from the Greenhorns, a nonprofit in Maine. And you put them out there, you deploy them, and that's how sometimes the farmers just get their information, right? Because they live in isolated places. The 2 books were made in black and white, and we had to use all the images had to be open source. So, and we designed a whole system for the book, a typography hierarchy, and kind of to keep the type and the design of the book in the back and let the stories kind of come up. Now the second one is out there. And this really kind of gives us this idea of like, well, how the book can continue to be a dissemination, a way to get into people's stories. The Blackstone River is it's a research project that I've been working on since I got to Northeastern, and it's been based on a National Endowment for the Arts grant that we're just closing now. And what this project, this is the Blackstone River. It's an amazing, the oldest river, the most industrial river in the United States. Worcester all the way down to Pawtucket, where my studio is, Rhode Island there. So it crosses all this amazing part of the United States, this part of the East Coast and New England. And we're looking at and what we did an expedition, right? And what we did a couple different things, an engagement opportunity here, a branding campaign called the Blackstone River Dialogues, a pop-up community engagement events. I have my colleague Emily Vogler from Risty Landscape, and she was doing a Blackstone River expedition in kayak. So she was going in kayaking with her team while wherever they were landing, we had a pop-up. And then we were doing engagement events. And within the engagement events that I did and worked with my team, we were doing this postcards that we were having and brought our little letterpress that we have. And we were talking about the issues of the river. We are the river, what's the naming of the river, the uses of the river, why we should keep of it, the dams that are part of this infrastructure. And we created this kind of communication set that was called, Dear Blackstone River. And it was a letter and we created a PO box, and we give these letters to schools, to different people, and the prompt was, if you had a conversation with the Blackstone River, what would you say? And so we deployed those things, we gave it to people, and then some of them, they came back in boxes, people will sell them into our PO box. And we got stuff like this, like different drawings, kids, different people, poets, all kinds of stuff, telling us about the river. And that made me think that the way we look at rivers, that rivers are not just a map, a line that is crossing through a wonderful geology. Rivers are crossing through different communities. So in this case, this graphic was kind of a way to think about the rivers running through us, right? And it's the stories that we have on the river and the relationship that we have with it. What it will create at the end of the day, it's stewardship, right? So then we did that campaign, and we did shirts, and we did a paddle party where we ended up after the paddling. I wasn't paddling, I don't do that, but I did printing. And so we ended up in Narragansett Brewery, and we had a lot of fun, and we did that's Emily there with his crew. And it's now amazing because this river is so disconnected. So they will take the kayak out and walk and go down and then put it again, right? And it really talks about the story of the disconnected, right? Of the landscapes. And we were there, waiting for them with our little letterpress and talking about things, right? And we had those conversations. And what was so really interesting about this is that, people are very, we go to all kinds of towns. As you can see, there's many different towns that weren't really, not expected of maybe people like me, right? But and they were like, "What are you guys doing here? What's the deal? What are you up to?" And I was like, "No, I'm here. I'm here with this cool machine." And they were, "What do you mean, cool machine? Let me see that machine. What is that machine?" I was like, "This is from 1910." What? This machine is from 1910? I'm like, "Yep." I'm like, "And you fixed it?" I'm like, "No, I didn't fix it. I sent it somewhere and they fixed it for me." Wait, people fix this stuff? So you get it, right? You get it. So I am talking about the issue without talking about the issue. So all of a sudden, 15, 20 minutes in, we're printing, right? And we're talking about printing. And at the end of the day, they're saying, "Oh, what is this printing about?" I was like, aren't we the river? Shouldn't we care of this thing? Don't you love this place? Of course, right? And then we'll say, "Okay, man, I want to take this to my house." And I was like, "Yes." And I will say to them, "Put it in your kitchen fridge so everyone can see it," right? And so how do we start thinking about these narratives? How do we compress them? How do we reverse them? How do we really try to make something out of them? And now we're working in a pop-up exhibit that is going to travel through these towns, and it's going to be banner, like pop-up little vinyl thingies, and you put them out, and the team there will, the different nonprofits that take care of the space, do that. Similar to this project, I work with a park in Providence where we had this campaign of stormwater and like flooding, right? Flooding, it goes to a lot of people. A lot of people get you know, the storms are increasingly crazy. We just had a storm on Sunday that was just, that was really early to have that. So it's not that the things are getting worse, it's just there's a bigger incident. There's more of them. So there's a bigger repetition of them, right? How is the park is here, right? This is the bay. This is the Providence River. All of this here is a very Latino neighborhood, heavily Latino neighborhood, right? That goes into the river, ends up in the bay. That ends up in the ocean, right? So how do we start to think about these concepts? In a very, very, kind of simplifying the complexity of this. Number one, I was talking to my wife and I said, because stormwater is so important. I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. And say, what happened? She said, what the hell is stormwater? Right? Why do we think that people should know these things? It's just, I don't understand. Right? We often have these preconceptions that people know what we know, and people don't know what they don't know. So a very important thing that I like to do, and I learn out of that process, is understanding what a glossary is. Let's start the conversation let's just start with a clean palette. Let's define what stormwater, water runoff, impervious, and all that stuff is, so we can start really thinking about this. So these are very small things that we're doing here that are perhaps, I'm hoping that they catch up, right? That they catch up. The other one was understanding the water flow. And one of the things, and this is a very, very small detail, but when we think about the way that we represent the things, in this case, how water is flowing through the neighborhood, it was very important to me to say, we need to put residences that are being rented, because a lot of people don't own homes. So if you put a beautiful home with people don't see that. They don't see themselves on it because they don't live in it. Right? So these are just very decisions that a designer and a communicator should take to observe where that you're working, what's your audience, in order for you to create a strategy and develop a communication strategy that actually fits, right? And again, I'm still have to test these things, right? But I get the kids, the things, they send me pictures and they're like, look at that, right? We get into all other kinds of stuff too. I made a dog there that poops. It has a huge poop to talk about like the issues with bacteria. And I wanted to make that poop as big as a window. And when the kids go there, they go, oh, right? Like, so they just, it's just, we don't have to be so serious about this stuff.
So play is good.
Yeah. And, we of course get into the whole section and the whole stuff, perhaps for the teachers and the parents and the other person that is more interested, obviously, in teaching those things to that. So one thing that we wanted to do was to have a newspaper box and create a newspaper that is in there about the different strategies that the park is doing. And it's very hard to find a newspaper box. I had one in mind. I circled it for about 3 weeks, but I just didn't want to do it. And they were like, do it. I'll give you a pick up. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna see if I can find another one in a legit way. And I did. I found a person out of anywhere in Pennsylvania that stores a bunch of them. And he was like, yeah, I was waiting for this. And I'm like, oh my God, you're like you're like, you're gonna do a lot of business. We're gonna do a lot of work together. And he's like, yeah. So he sent me that thing, right? Odd thing to do. My neighbor is like, Jose, there's like a newspaper box out here for you. And I'm like, awesome. And so we put some graphics on it and we printed an edition of 300 papers. We are up to 2,500 now after 2 years. So people do take them. I don't think they throw them in the river. We don't have any things about that. But the thing becomes that you can see how the travel boards, now we printed a second travel board and they're not in the park, but people take them and they travel. The Providence Stormwater Innovation. So they take that with them. So, and you see like, I get those pictures here and there. So they go different places and, the kids kick them and, and are there with them. So I think that, you know, and it's sort of like that kind of stuff, right? Like it's just this idea of connecting a message through something else, right? Then you see that kid is like, you know, sunglasses and all that wonderful stuff. But it's sort of these ways of kind of building new narratives out of the ones. And I just quickly want to talk about a project that I'm doing here in Latin American graphic design, and that's what I brought this big poster or here. I had a show. I worked in a collection in graphic design and Latin American graphic design. So as part of Northeastern, my research here, I collect posters from Latin America, from different countries. It's a lifelong project, and from all times, you know, 1960s to last December. And I love this poster because it's coming from typographic print shop from Colombia. And they did the United Nations Biodiversity Conference. And I just thought this was just an incredible, and this was a street poster. So they went along the city of Cali, Colombia, and they put that everywhere to advertise the conference. So I thought this is just, it's such an incredible way. This is done by hand on a letterpress by experienced artists. And I just thought this was just a really wonderful way of seeing how the power of art and design and craft to kind of tell a story that is engaging, right? And that perhaps finding new ways, new methods, new spaces to kind of talk about these issues, whether it's a newspaper box, a street poster, right? A little postcard in the fridge and things like that. So I think that's sort of like the whole idea of this theme. But I just wanted to just close quickly that this show, it's been, I have been very lucky that the show, I have the archive, it's been right now published in 2 places. In New York, it's in the Ford Foundation as part of Lineages in Design History Reverberation. It's a show that is reuniting 50 artists around the world and that talking about and pushing the boundaries of what design history is. And you know, a lot of artworks, but in this table, this is an educational table, and this is where Gráfica Latina is. It's open, it's an open resource there where you can see and you can read about the different posters that I'm working on and writing about. And this has just been a really fun experience to be the archive to be there as an educational piece. I have it also in the Waterfire in Providence, Rhode Island, where I design along with my partner, designed the exhibit where I am showcasing. We're showcasing around 175 posters from 16 different countries in Latin America. We design, install, and it's just been a really, and there it is. Not kidding, right? So it's there. And so I have built some programming on it. Often when we think about, we had enough time, we do pop-ups. We do pop-ups, sometimes go for a day in a cultural center or sometimes go for 2 days. This has been 6 weeks. So when we had 6 weeks, we were like, let's go, let's do this, let's do it. And so we had schools, they have come, different classrooms, high schools, universities have come to talk. We built this big plywood wall and they paste up for it. We were interviewed by the public radio on the importance of or the experience of, you know, Latin American posters and the archive. And we invited the typographic print shop, which I would say they're the cultural heritage of Latin America at this moment in terms of printmaking. They are La Linterna, and there are 3 printers, and they are a collective where if you go there and you stay with them, and you propose a poster and they like it, they will print it for you, and then you'll get a cut, and then your posters will be all around the world. They travel around the world, and they were able to be with me. I was lucky enough to bring them to Providence and be with me for a week, and created a documentary screening. We did a wood paste workshop and a DW and a letterpress workshop where it was what? We were there. So this was some scenes, some photos of what happened this weekend. So we had a poster sale. These are the master printers. These 2. Fabian is the director. takes them around. This is the first time they come to the United States. So they're really happy. And then they go to France and they go to Germany and they go to Canada because everyone loves them. And these are the event that we did for the youth, right? For them to get posters in their language, in their colors, in their style, for everyone, right? And we did a documentary and we built another plywood wall where then we did a paste up workshop where people came and pick a poster and then did it. And that was the last two workshop. Now this is a master here printing. Digo, dancing. Where is he?
It's loading.
Oh, it's loading. Okay, there it is. He's not printing, he's dancing there, but that's okay. We had an incredible, amazing Colombian writer visiting us, the show, so we were very excited. And everyone came and printed and paste up, with us, and that's what it ended up being. Now the center is they're gonna cut them, each of them, and then they're gonna sell them for, as a way, we're gonna do a partnership too, to also support their nonprofit because they are a nonprofit that gives spaces and platforms for artists. So very important for us. And this was the workshop that we did last weekend. Actually, I had a Northeastern student, two Northeastern students, and my friend here, and they were able to come and print with us. So yeah, so thank you guys very much. And now, if you have any questions, let me know. We do have a risograph workshop after this. Till 4. So yeah, we're gonna go to 3:05. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything. Yes. Yes, and
You said you had moved your studio to Pawtucket, so what
Yeah.
will that mean for your connection to place?
well, the Pawtucket is very close. It's like five minutes from Providence, but we're just happy because it's been we started the studio really just kind of like a donation of a space. And it was 5 years ago. So since then, we had like 10 water leaks in our space. We have changed spaces, so it's been slowly building. And we had the last like pipe that broke like in the summer in August, and we lost some printing that we did, actually a workshop that we did, and I think that was the end of it.
Just can't do it
So
that way anymore.
I was just like, we're done, and now we're in a space that I think it is this idea that things do take time, especially when you're working with very limited resources, and the work is really just a lot of it's moving laterally through the community. And so I remember I went to bed, I couldn't sleep, and I woke up very early and I looked at this place and it was open. There was a space open. And I woke up and I told the lady about 25 times from 7 o'clock to 10:30. And I was like, I want this space, I want this place, gave it the space, and we got the space. So we're very happy to now have a space where we can do workshops and bring people and not have water leaks, and so thank you for asking that, because this has been it's what we needed. And I think it's just it's really just talks about like how these things take time. We often think that, or maybe students sometimes think like things have to be right away, and it's a long process. But yeah, we're gonna do workshops there, so hopefully you guys can come. Stephanie.
It's beautiful. And I think it's very smart how you're trying to like communicate with. So in that sense, and we've talked a bit about your work now. So I'm just curious, what is the most challenging aspect of your work and the most rewarding?
Oof. Well, the most challenging is all the work. Well, the most rewarding. Let's start with what should I start with? I mean, there's a lot of things I can say. I let's just say like I had just to give you just a broad, just kind of an anecdotal example of what has happened in the last 5 days. I have my it's when everything makes together. So I have 3 workshops. I have my dossier I have, I have this presentation, have all these things. So the work is a lot, specifically because it's only two of us, right? But it's the most rewarding thing because when I'm there in these spaces like this weekend and I saw these guys printing, I was like, we're doing something. Like I know we're doing something that means something. And it's rewarding for me because I've been doing this for 24 years. And when you have this idea of what you want to do for so long, and now you see it,
Wow.
that's the rewarding part. Yeah. But the challenging part is working with people. It's very hard to work with people. Sometimes also people like to romanticize community, and it's not great. It's a lot of work. People don't get paid. There's very limited resources, and there's a lot of competition. And so there's a lot of things that you have to put a lot of yourself in order to get the stuff done. And I think, part of being a designer in this kind of world, or like the things that I'm trying to test, because again, I'm testing these things. I don't really know. I don't know what works or not. I mean, I should reframe. I'm getting to know what works or not, because I've been doing this for 6 years and I'm trying it everywhere that I could. But a lot of it is volunteer work that doesn't necessarily comes back to my bank account. But that's okay because it's research, and I can bring this to my students. And it sort of works for me because the studio that I have is not necessarily a studio that is out there trying to be a private studio that wants to operate like a private studio. I am a 501c3 right now in process. And I see a lot of the work that I do is a research way for me to test these things and bring them back to the classroom and to the university. So it's very rewarding. I think it's more rewarding than it's very troublesome because we have to do a lot of things. I mean, look at everything it's just you have a lot going on, but I don't know. This is what I want to do. So yeah, but I love that question because it's hard. Community is hard, and you got to get on there, right? One poster at a time. I always say to people, no project is small enough. No, we're talking about stickers. I love stickers. I've done a lot of damage.
Well, heck, when you talked about the water flyer idea possibility, and that was not that long ago.
Not that long
You
ago.
had to convince a lot of people to believe.
Yeah.
And it's pretty impressive, the invisible work that
Goes
I would
beyond
love
it.
to
Yeah.
know that, and I'm
You know
thinking
that.
just getting the tip of the iceberg of everything that you all
Yeah.
have to do.
Well, and the thing is, you're so right, because in order to get this show in the water fire, I made 4 pop-ups. And when I said I made 4, I have a Volkswagen. I put the posters in IKEA frames, put them in the trunk of my car, load them in the car, take them there, get some vinyl, put the poster, all this work so I can use that as a portfolio to then go to the guy at Waterfire and say, listen, look what I've been doing. Let's
He's been
do this.
collecting this work for a long time.
And
So there's a whole tree.
Yeah, the show, yeah, exactly. This stuff,
That's pretty impressive.
yeah, this stuff started when I was a student at RISD. This started when I was a student, and I wrote a grant, a little tiny little grant to see my mom because I miss my mom. And it was like, it's important. Pero I was like, I'm gonna go to Cuba and Puerto Rico and kind of figure out how the two countries with very distinctive relationship with the United States, how are they expressing that history, those very different histories through its graphic, through its posters, through its identity in terms of messaging and poster making and all that and graphics. And boy, that was crazy because, Fidel, it was all, it's all closed. There's nothing there, only the revolution. There's an incredible branding project there. And very, very heavily, at times, very inspired by the Soviets, right? And then so you have the Puerto Ricans with the Commonwealth and sort of the history of the United States and sort of that relationship that comes with it, and schools in New York, for example. So it was an interesting way for me to start figuring this out. And I was lucky enough that the museum was archiving. They got a Smithsonian grant to archive the posters. And I happened to walk, and they were like, "We're looking for someone that scans." I'm like, "I'm here. I'll be here every day. I'll scan all of it." And so, and I was like, "Don't pay me, but I'll take can I get the permits to, and they were go for it." And that's how then it started. And like you said, the history of the poster, it's behind it because I spent so much time researching. I also went to school and learned, you have to learn what to look for, right? And like, what are the things, then how to archive it. That's another thing, right? We're learning how to archive. I talk to experts, okay, putting gloves, archival paper, how do you conserve this stuff? Exhibit design, and really the project itself is a community project. It's three things. One thing is a love letter to Latin America. It's a window to different countries, but it's a community project because Tatiana's mom is Chilean. So when she goes to Chile, we gave her some coordinates, and she's ready to get us posters, meet the artists. I have friends that go to Argentina, and we're like, okay, if you go to Argentina, you have to know who La Prensa de Libertad is. Go get the posters from him. You're gonna love this guy. And they're like, who's Prensa? Who's what? I'm like, dude, he has a letterpress in his bicycle. You're gonna love this guy. And then they end up. But then now I got into the trouble, and it's like, don't tell Jose that we're going somewhere because he's gonna want me to bring a poster back. And so we have to I have to rotate through a lot of people. So that's what it is. It's an interesting way of having people around these things. And print is not dead. And I think people love making something with their hands, but they also love touching something in a digital age where everything seems so bad. Everything seems so, I don't know. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, we have a workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.